I'm Jean-François Biget, Partner Director at Mega International. And today I will be moderating the session initiating an EA project for rapid success. I will share screen. It's there. Perfect. So Mega has decided to propose this session because we regularly receive many questions on this topic. All questions are welcome today. And if we are not able to answer all of them, we will answer them in a paper that we will share afterward. So take it easy and focus on the talk as we prepare the notes. Okay, so to answer today's question, I have invited Leslie Robinet, Service Director at Mega International. After brilliant studies at Virginia Tech, Leslie came in France and started working at Mega. From consultant in France to Service Director in Europe, Leslie has developed a very pragmatic understanding of EA projects. Leslie is multicultural, pays attention to environment, is Mega ambassador on this topic, and personally implicated on local initiative where she lives. Leslie, do you have something to add?
Well, thanks for the introduction, and I'm glad to be here today with Abdallah and Jean-François to talk about services, as I've been working in services for 17 years, and I'm looking forward to the discussions and to your questions. Glad to be here.
Thanks, Leslie. And my best partner, someone with big heart too, someone I'm very respectful, Mr. Abdallah Kadi, General Manager and founder of Sormina. After football dreams and success in studies at Lebanese American University, Abdallah developed an impressive career between CIO responsibilities and management of consulting firm. Abdallah is well known in Middle East because he was a pioneer of enterprise architecture with TOGAF courses and many successful projects. Abdallah also takes time to teach and help young to grow. Abdallah, welcome. Do you have something to add?
Hi, good evening and or good morning, should I say, and thank you for having me over in this discussion. Looking forward to the questions. Always a pleasure to be around the Mega team.
Thank you, Abdallah. In name of Mega International and the audience, thank you very much, dear experts, to participate and to share your experiences. Dear audience, bad news. It's time for you to work. I invite you to type in Livestorm in this dedicated tab named Questions. The questions. They are necessary to have a great session and a lot of interaction. In the meanwhile, I start with the first one to Leslie and Abdallah, and I hope a lot of questions. Dear expert, please, can you give 4 advice, tips, or best practice regarding how to initiate a new project? I would like answer one after the other. Let's start with Leslie.
With pleasure. So what I would say for any project, but specifically for EA, an important tip is to focus on what's essential. Okay, so start by identifying what's essential. Okay, so this is to try to have a focus of a scope that's going to let you have your time to value be more efficient, and also that you can give results that are going to provide value for the organization. So before you're launching yourself into your EA project, it's identifying what are the key challenges, the key motivators, like the problems that you're going to be able to enable addressing thanks to the scope that you're going to follow. So sometimes people get tripped up in trying to cover too large or too deep right away. And that's a quick way to not be quick and efficient. So focus on the essential, identify the essential. Abdallah.
Well, I cannot agree more, Leslie. I think it's very important to be clear on what we want to achieve, and to do that, I think it's essential we understand the strategic context that should drive the architecture initiative or project. So this means what? This means making sure that whatever focus you're going to give to your program, this focus or this relevance is actually driven by the strategy and supported by the sponsor and enabled by the stakeholders. So I think those elements would lead to the right focus to achieve success and maintain that success.
I'm happy to see the first question are coming, so very good. Let's move on with a new advice, Leslie.
Well, a second piece I kind of bounce off one of Abdallah's comments is the stakeholders aspect. Okay, so from the get-go, also identifying who are the stakeholders we're going to implicate and implicate them early on in the process so that you can be more sure that you're having that input of their needs and their involvement. So then they're going to be helping you also communicate on that success because they're implicated in creating the project. So this is from the business side, from the IT side, and from the management. Okay, so having the involvement and the mandate from those of the top management is going to allow you to follow through on and better assure that what you're delivering is going to be, adopted, acknowledged. That's what we're trying to do, I guess.
Great. Abdallah, your last tip?
Yeah, I will advance this a little bit to the next level, which is basically establishing a structured foundation for an enterprise architecture function. It is essential we understand that transformation is no longer a project, so adopting a method-centric approach might not be the best way to succeed with EA. So the opposite of a project is a functioning organization. So there are 4 components that are important to consider when you're setting up that EA program from a practice perspective. One is to have the clear mandate and the right operating model. 2 is to have a structured taxonomy. When you're going to go into architecture, it's essentially establish a common language with all the stakeholders, and the language you use should represent information that is of value to the stakeholders. So that's what we call concern-driven architecture, right? So you focus on the concerns of the stakeholders. The third element, and this is really the differentiator where we see most people, struggle, is defining a clear service catalog for your enterprise architecture. So you need to understand what are your core EA services and what are your support EA services in order to become an operating function. And the fourth one is the right governance model and governance enablement elements with a clear interaction model between enterprise architecture and the other functions.
Thank you very much. I will react with 2 first questions around the value. Very quickly, we come on value. One is, what are the expectations from the line of business to drive the adoption of the best practice around EA?
Say that again.
What are the expectations from the lines of business to drive the adoption of the best practice around EA?
Say that again.
I think I will reformulate.
Let me
expectation from the business perspective.
Yes. Let me explain a little bit how I've seen EA functions contribute to the business. As we all know, the role of the architects is to help create a unified view of a target architecture that is aligned with the strategic objective and, more importantly, that reflects the priority of the business capability development. So that architecture practice should be driven by the realization of the capability evolutions. And to do that, our main role is the facilitation and not actually the design itself, but the facilitation of the definition of the transformation opportunities. So what does this mean? This means that as an architect, my role is to provide the business owner with what we call coordinated baseline architecture views, which is an integrated set of views that enable a context analysis, not only the review of the requirement, and enable him to extract from it what we call a pull transformation requirements. Those are problematic capabilities that needs to be improved to achieve certain value. Now, my second role is the provision of reference models that reflect the best practices in order to enable the identification of additional opportunities for improvement and to leverage those reference models to introduce innovative solutions to drive the design of the target architecture. So in other words, while the business owners might be the best reference for the problem, the architects are probably the best advisors for the solution.
Regarding the framework, we have another question. I think it's from someone I well know, in fact. How would you assess the maturity of the EA practice in the MENA region today? Maybe it refers to some compliance aspects in Middle East. How would you assess the maturity of the EA practice regarding the new requirements, especially at government level or whatever, regarding EA practice?
If I may answer on this, having done so many projects in the Gulf region, Middle East, if you want to call it, I think we are witnessing, I've started doing those projects in 2006, and I can tell you that initially the focus was around documentation, connected view, and coordinated views. While in the last 4 or 5 years, especially in Saudi Arabia, we've seen a major enterprise architecture program driven by the Digital Government Authority that is starting to generate real value. So I think it is still at an infantile stage. However, what I like about it is that it is very value-centric and operational. So it's not really, it's mandating the documentation. So it has a framework, the NORA framework, which defines the views that are required, but it's very result-oriented. And I believe that within the next couple of years, we're going to see excellent architects in the region.
To kind of just bounce off of that, it's true that as we move forward, there's different elements, outside factors that organizations have to face that EA can help them face because they already have they can provide this impact analysis power center and the visibility on the organization. And one of those perspectives you're talking about was compliance. So you're talking about the certain sectors of the world with certain regulations or regulatory aspects. But as we look ahead, there are more and more of them. We've found that's just an additional driver that even in Europe, the Americas, South America, I mean, throughout the world, that we have more and more complexity and expectations that we have to follow. And being able to do that and leaning on EA can be really helpful because, again, we already have a visibility on what we do, how we're doing it, with what we're doing it to show that we're following our organization and controlling it. I noticed that already in the banking industry with lots of the new banks that are growing quickly, but they still have to show that they're really have a good handle on their organization, business continuity management, resilience. And we see this also on sustainability with additional regulatory elements that are showing up in Europe, and then in a couple of years, we're seeing that in other parts of the world. So I think the angle risk management compliance is more and more a part of the EA vocabulary and the EA collaboration efforts inside organizations.
Thanks. Thanks, Leslie. I was reading the question. I tried to analyze and group them. Not always very easy. I have one regarding for the greenfield IT. How do you see the leverage of Mega?
The leverage of Mega on greenfield IT.
Yeah, on greenfield IT.
From my perspective, I think the advantage of Mega over others is that it's a platform that can grow with the EA maturity as the complexity of the IT environment of an organization grows. So the initial investment that is done by the organization is actually capitalized and used over a longer period. So while Mega provides the accelerator from ease of use, the accelerators from content, so reference models and UFC integration, the integration with reference models, I think it is a tool that can grow. And it's important to understand that the depth of EA can be of 3 levels. While initially we focus on stopping the bleeding with directing the procurement for new solutions in a greenfield environment, when this environment becomes complex, then the rationalization becomes of value, and that's solving problems. So what's powerful about Mega is that it enables both ease of use to drive the governance over acquisition of solutions when you're greenfield, but also the ability to evolve towards more architecture content later on and enable rationalization to solve problems in the production environment.
Well, also, I mean, I'm trying to interpret this question in different angles because I also, when people talk about greenfield, I see lots of situations with organizations who develop themselves solutions. So it's not only managing technologies that are required to cover needs for the organization, like you said, kind of keeping that clean, but also conceiving and evolving information systems. And that is a capacity that can, that more and more organizations have to carry. They don't only acquire, they develop. So being able to do that, it can be helpful. Not often is that the starting point for the EA projects. Typically, the first step is more trying to identify what do we have, what do we need, do we have sometimes more than what we need, or we need to secure what we have, technological obsolescence, etc., cost management, and then identifying IT rationalization steps. But it is a good next step to kind of go deeper into EA to be able to address the IT architecture side, again, evolving these systems. In France and Western Europe, we have quite a few clients that have not so much the greenfield advantages and a lot more legacy to manage. And there, the complexity and the richness and the history can be more easy to address with this kind of a solution. But I wonder if with the clients that you work with in the Middle East and also in Africa, do you have more less legacy organizations or organizations that are younger getting started that have more of a greenfield zone playground, I guess, to be in?
Yeah, more.
Regarding the beginning of a project, with a new question, if the basic architecture is incomplete, could this be skipped or still have success? Wow.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Yeah. If the basic architecture is incomplete, could it be skipped or still have success?
What does that mean, basic architecture?
I think it's the first inventory, things like this.
Mm-hmm. Well, we have seen...
Data collection is very often, an issue during the project. It could be an issue, some customer, to find the data to create the we have someone.
Are you going to clarify? Thank you.
Can I clarify it? Enterprise architecture covers the whole enterprise, right?
Right.
So if all the capabilities, if all the departments are connected, then you have a good baseline to do your analysis and your impact analysis, etc. But if that is not there, and you need to focus just on a small piece of the organization, is it still possible to have...
I understand a better question now. Thank you. Thank you very much. You most certainly don't need it all to bring value from what you're following, okay? Because otherwise it would be really hard to succeed. You do need the structure that we talked about earlier with Abdallah, where what's the reason to be of the organization? Why are we here? What are we aiming for? Because otherwise, if you don't have that focus, then where are we going? But you most certainly don't need all of the information about all of the departments in order to get value from that. In fact, on the contrary, starting with, for example, a pilot perimeter allows you to validate that you can go through the full arc of input information, using that information to make business decisions and evolution and results, outcomes, deliverables through communication fields. So when you're getting started and growing, it's better to take it by chunks even than right away attempting to have all of the different aspects of the organization connected right away. First of all, I don't think it's impossible, but also it would make a longer delay between your start and your results. Okay, so having a smaller perimeter and having other people to kind of defend the success, contribute to communicate on the success that you're having with them, lets you then trickle over to the other parts of the organization. What do you think, Abdallah?
Well, I think this is a common challenge, and the way the architecture practitioners dealt with it is through segmentation, right? It's really decomposing the enterprise into segments and addressing segments individually if the horizontal enterprise view is not available. So that's on the mechanics of dealing with incomplete basic architecture, if you want. I segment the organization. I go after the segments where I have the right support, the right access to information. But it's essential we understand that if you adopt that segment-based approach, then you are confining the architecture at best to a segment-level view, which means segment architecture, project architecture, and solution architecture. But doing transformation planning becomes more difficult, and establishing effective governance becomes also more challenging. And for sure, rationalization is not possible under segment architecture.
I have a question in very specific context. I propose to pick two. One is, how can EA be most effective and supportive during a merger?
Okay, that's a good one. I think that's a really good use case. We've seen it a lot. I think that's really interesting. So first of all, EA can be useful in the mergers because it lets you first sit down and re-clarify with the main stakeholders that you all have the same vision of the value stream of the organization, the capacities of the organization. And then with accelerating tools to recuperate the information from both sides, put together side by side the different assets. So what are the different business applications and technologies that are being manipulated from both sides, mapping to the capabilities, so managing functional coverage and overlap. Also from the process side, that allows to identify high-level main processes that allow to deliver these all needs value streams, and then assist in the organizational impact, because here in the mergers and acquisitions, you have the IT impact and the rationalization that goes behind it, and you have the organizational impact on the different expectations and responsibilities. So you have to manage both of those aspects, but the core piece being the business capability that anchors the two sides. And again, implication from both sides, and starting with a pilot where you're going to have good spokespersons that are more positive about the change. Don't start with people that are more reticent and to this, they might consider already a forced merger situation. So that once that perimeter is a success, then it's easier to leverage for going on to the other perimeters.
Abdallah, do you want to add something, or?
Well, the only thing I would add one thing. I think we all understand that rationalization is the key aspect or key element to address in a merger. However, I would start from the business side, saying the decision on the business services and underlying operations, so the realignment of the business context should drive the rationalization. So based on how we decide, or how the merged entity decides to perform its services and its operations, should drive how I rationalize and evaluate my overlapping capabilities and make choices. So it's not only technology or cost or capability, it's more importantly business priorities or business functionality that is required to drive that rationalization.
The next question starts with a fact. Big silos in very large organizations. How are you seeing EA adoption across large and complex organizations, say like banks or like financial services? What has been some of the best practice in such large organizations?
In big or small organizations, communication and involvement are key. So you can't just stay in your corner and be really proud of all the fantastic things you're doing with a couple of really smart people. The end users need to be aware and access and leverage this content and the strengths that you're bringing to them. So reach is important. So communication through portals and reporting and dashboards. And when I talk about involvement, I'm talking about pulling in the people who even can participate in maintaining, for example, the quality and the freshness of the content you manipulate. So the business owners of the applications, the IT owners of the applications, the risk managers, the process owners. So if they're implicated in the different workflows that reflect the organization that pull back into the EA practice, it gets these people talking, and that they're a part of the solution. So they're going to be more likely on board, because not only are they getting something out of it, but they feel like a part of the project. So I would say those are the two key pieces. Abdallah, anything you think you want to add to that?
I think the challenge of large organizations and the silo context of some of the functions within such large environments dictates a more structured approach to enterprise architecture. So we need to design the value based on the context of the organization. So and to do that, we need to understand that EA can be practiced at 4 different levels. So while you can do enterprise architecture to drive enterprise-wide transformation planning, you can also do architecture to guide and support acquisition of new solutions, or do architecture at solution level to technically validate implemented solutions, or do architecture at portfolio to rationalize your production environment and achieve quality of IT services, reduction of total cost of ownership, and better resilience. So I think the context of complexity should guide the way we segment the enterprise if we need to, and the way we design the value and progressively acquire acquire stakeholders and onboard more segments into our architecture practice. It's all about small wins that accumulate over time to build trust and enable the right environment for the architecture to provide this wall-less enterprise view of the organization.
But the things that you mentioned and in fact, a strength when you have a holistic approach is when you have different use cases, so different populations of this large organization that need answering their use case and their need, you're going to have overlap amongst these use cases that is pulling these people together. So I totally agree with what you said. Good comments.
I will take a last one regarding the value. So question is, any tips on how to explain sell EA and the value it can bring to executive team, C-level and or board? So how to sell my project?
Well, if you're at the very beginning, an easy way to get started is talking about money because cost savings, and it's been proven, there were Gartner analysis around notably APM initiatives, ITPM initiatives on the return on investments. So the EA baseline, so the first step is, I think, the easiest to sell because you can start with costs that are more direct and easier to demonstrate on that first step. Then another angle that could come in that same level of maturity, but perhaps more afterwards, is resilience and risk avoidance for the organization. So anticipating what's to come, being ready for what's to come, and then allowing the organization to provide more innovation and be around longer and be more sustainable. So I'd say those are the arguments that I would put forth. I would also, with the direction, try to address what might be holding them back from investing, not just talk about what the value we're bringing, but hesitations they might have around, this is going to take too long, this is going to be heavy, it's going to be just slow down our capacity to move forward. There's going to be a new police with more processes to document all the organization. So I would also encourage your addressing in advance before they can give you those arguments. So have counter arguments about how you're going to accelerate getting off the ground your EA practice, because you're going to leverage the content you already have, leverage the content that others have. So for example, say, we're not going to invent the wheel here. We're going to be able to load up our repository quickly. You're going to see outcomes quickly, and give them even some examples of some of the use cases you've identified in the organization, business drivers that you're going to directly address thanks to that. So I think, your selling shouldn't just be about the positives, but also about the negatives that you're going to counter argument right away.
Another question. I will change no more value, but we have a few time now to answer all the questions. So we will answer each question by with a paper we will share with you following in the next days. But in the last minutes, how to be rapid. We speak about value, how to create value, but how to be rapid. Very often it's difficult to find the good data, to show the value, but another issue could be long to get the result. So what to do?
We've already touched on a couple pieces of this. So in the very beginning, like the very introduction to our meeting today, when I was giving my first advice, which was focusing on what's essential, if you've identified what is this first step scope that you're going to address, it's a lot quicker to get all the data you need if you're just getting a certain scope of data, okay? And as I was just talking about, when you're in front of the deciding bodies and trying to sell your EA, about how quick you're going to be leveraging current data, so quick data loads, but also industry content like the buy-on capability maps to get yours started, to not, again, reinvent the wheel, the APQC process structures or compliance regulatory things from UCF. Things like that can help you have parts of your content that you're going to take less time to load. And then when it comes to some of your modeling, you can lean on tools like HopeX that have automatic diagram initialization based off of your content and reporting and other data visualizations based off content. So trying to get these different elements that can accelerate. In addition, discovery, so business application discovery is another way to, or technological discovery, to identify what do we have in our organization to get the inventory started quicker. And collaborative features, pulling in people to contribute content, can also help you get more pertinent content quicker. But all of that under the prerequisite of only get the content that you need to give the outcomes that you have identified will be of value to your stakeholders.
Adela, do you want to add something on this one?
Yeah, I'll just say that Mega's new slogan is very much aligned with this. It's all about connected, automated, intelligent, right? And all those elements are accelerators for success. I would add to it that the right focus is essential as well. So by being pragmatic about what you want to achieve, by adopting a use case centric approach to delivering on your architecture promise, and as you know, a use case starts with the concerns of the stakeholders. Those concerns would require certain analysis. Those analyses are enabled by a set of business outcomes. And those business outcomes are constructed out of views that are built based on viewpoints coming from your content framework and meta model. So that construct, understanding that construct allows architects to actually reverse engineer a need into an architecture sprint, if I may call it. And by adopting this sprint-based model, you become faster to deliver, especially if you leverage the acceleration capabilities provided with the Mega platform today.
Thank you, Abdallah. Yes, for sure. I think people saw today some very nice feature with automation, AI, and things like this to go faster. True. We are close to the end, but we have still a few seconds. So maybe one, a bit difficult, I don't know if we have the time, but we will try to start. Any guidance or best practice on leveraging EA for setting up enterprise security architecture? Do you have few tips, idea in 1 minute, because we are at the end?
If you want, from my side, I would say that the three elements that add value from an enterprise architecture is the ability to contextualize the risk itself. So architecture enables you to understand not only to enumerate, but to understand the context, the environment in which the risk is existent. So that's one element that really adds a lot of value, because then the control design becomes more effective. The second element that I think is also important is the aspect of principles and standards and reference models, and in some cases what we call design patterns to drive adoption of certain security structures. So I think that those governance elements, applying them to the security domain, would enable the cybersecurity team to do better. And the last but not least is the ability to manage incidents, do root cause analysis, and better define action plans to remediate any incidents with this 360-degree view built around the connected views provided by the enterprise architects.
Definitely agree, especially with the move to cloud, a topic that's really important for a lot of the organizations right now, being able to identify this security topics or the risks on not just the application systems themselves, but the different interfaces they have with the other systems. so we can manage those different impact analysis pieces. But we need to close out.
Answer.
Yeah.
Just in time. Thank you very much to attend. We are in the last second, so be sure we will answer your question and send the notes in the next few days. And